Good evening and welcome to Sounding Board, a presentation of Soroptimist International of Novato, whose mission it is to improve the lives of girls and women locally and globally. Sounding Board is produced, crewed, directed, and moderated completely by members of Soroptimist International of Novato. I'm Freda Kaplan, and it's my pleasure tonight to have as my guests Suzanne Rush and Barbara Madrid from the Marin County School Volunteers. Hello, Susan. Barbara, and welcome to our program. What is this group, Marin County School Volunteers?
Well, Marin County School Volunteers is an organization, and we place hundreds of volunteers all over Marin County, and we place volunteers from Novato all the way down to Sausalito. And it started in 1997 by a group of ladies that decided that this county really needed help. The students needed help in the schools, and so we place volunteers in the public schools. And we're not in every public school. We're in about 45 different schools and programs, and the volunteers work with students from pre-K to high school.
How many volunteers are there?
There's over 400 volunteers, and we also have 200 student volunteers, so a peer tutoring group that helps other students, from high school students helping middle school students and middle school students helping elementary school students. So we have both the adult component and the children component helping each other.
How do you match the volunteers with the schools or the classrooms?
Well, we do a lot of different things to do that. We really start with the volunteer to find out what they would like to do, what kind of volunteering. When we do our intake, we do a lot of recruitment of volunteers, and once we find a volunteer that wants to come work in our program, we actually individually interview them to find out what kind of volunteering they'd like to do. And they generally volunteer. Most volunteers, probably about 80% of our volunteers, are working in the kindergarten through elementary school level, kindergarten through 5th grade. But then we have several volunteers that work in the middle school level and high school level. And we ask them what kind of volunteering they'd like to do, whether it be math help or language arts type help, reading, writing. So it's a variety of different things. We have volunteers that help with pre-K reading to students that are doing multivariable calculus. So it's a phenomenal program.
What happens if you match a volunteer up with a school and they're not happy with that?
Well, I spend a good portion of my time working, making sure that the volunteers are happy, and we always work hard to make sure that the volunteer is happy. And if for some reason maybe they realize they didn't want to be in that grade level, or they'd rather be doing something else, we'll find a different placement for them. And we have that happen. Sometimes a volunteer has been volunteering at a school for several years, maybe in a 2nd or 3rd grade class, and they want to move on to 5th grade, or they want to try high school. So we do a lot of what we call replacement, and that's part of what we want to do. We want to make sure that when a volunteer is going to volunteer at a school, that they wake up on a Tuesday morning and they head out to their volunteer opportunity and they love what they're doing.
So they probably stay a lot longer that way too.
That's right. We have a very high retention rate. I think we do an end of year survey every year, and I think we ended up with about 87% retention. Sometimes people get jobs, or they move away, or they just decide they don't want to do it anymore, but we do have a wonderful retention rate, because that's the mission of our program, is to facilitate volunteers and making sure they're happy doing what they're doing.
Are the people supervised when they're in the schools and in the classrooms?
Absolutely, that's a great question. The teacher, they're working under the supervision of the teacher, or if it's an after-school program, they work with the coordinator of the program. For example, in a high school setting, they'll be working generally with a the librarian, or with a counselor, and they're under or in a classroom, they're under the supervision of the teacher, and they're doing what the teacher asks them to do.
Does it happen that when a teacher moves to a different grade or a different school, the volunteer might go with them?
That happens sometimes, where they do move to a different school, or they move to a different grade level. Sometimes they'll stay with the same teacher I have a gentleman at a school in Novato that's been with the same teacher I started in about 2000, and he's been with the same teacher for 12 years or 13 years, and he told me the other day that he's going to retire when she retires.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, what takes up most of your time?
A good portion of my time is, as a program manager, is doing the recruitment and intake of the volunteers, and I do the initial training, because we have 2 different training classes that we require the volunteers that they come to that, and I spend time doing the training, and then also making sure the volunteer is happy, and calling them up, making sure they've gotten all their paperwork in, because all of our volunteers are fingerprinted and TB tested, and we need some references. And then we also do that individual interview where we sit down with them to find out what they'd like to do, and so a good portion of my time is doing that, and then I do meet with part of our requirement is to have a coordinator on campus or on site that will greet the new volunteers, so I spend time meeting with them as well, making sure that they're happy and that their volunteer situation is working out great. And I meet with principals generally a couple times a year as well.
And where are you located?
We're located at Marin County Office of Education. They've been so wonderful about giving us a home there. We are our own nonprofit. They are our fiscal agent, but we're located on Las Colinas Avenue in San Rafael, and we've been there most of the time that we've been around since 1997. We've been at Marin County Office of Education, and it's worked out wonderfully, because it's a really we have the same mission, obviously, helping children, and we can use their facilities to do our training classes and meeting and greeting volunteers.
Well, you're the project manager of Marin County School Volunteers. And Barbara, you're a volunteer. We have a real live volunteer here to tell us more about it. How long have you been doing this, and what do you do?
Well, I retired a couple of years ago, and I had previously done this when I worked in the city. I was given time by the company. I was allowed to work with San Francisco school volunteers, so I used to do that once a week in San Francisco. So I knew when I retired finally that I would want to give some time to the Marin County schools. So I've been doing it for a couple years now, and I am one of the examples of going along with the teacher. I started last year with a teacher at Loma Verde. She was a 2nd grade school teacher, and that was exactly what I wanted. So I was in the classroom with 2nd graders, and this year she was reassigned to be a 4th grade teacher, and so we talked about it, and she said, no, I'd like you to go with me. So I made the transition to 4th grade, which is a little bit different than working with 2nd graders, but generally I'm doing the same kinds of things that I have done when I was with the 2nd graders also. Is a lot of one-on-one reading, small group readings. The thing that's different about the 2nd and the 4th is, of course, in the 2nd grade you're really getting them a lot of practice so that they get familiar and gain more confidence in reading aloud and getting the practice that they need. Now that I'm in the 4th grade, there's some of that for kids who are below the reading level, but then there's also the whole aspect of comprehension. And so we do some reading together, and then they usually have assignments. They have to answer a series of questions about what they read. So then that also gets into the whole sentence structure type of work. You know, are they getting the punctuation right? Are they getting the beginning should have a capital and the end should have some type of punctuation? So there's a lot of that going on. So there's just sort of wandering around the room and working with them on that kind of stuff. And I really love that because I feel like I'm making a difference when I'm there. And I feel like, you know, I give 2 hours a week and I feel like it's time well spent because, you know, when you see the light go on and you can tell that you're making a difference. And sometimes it takes more than 1 week, of course, but it is something that gives you a lot of satisfaction because you felt like you've really done something worthwhile.
It sounds like you're knowledgeable about what you do with the classroom, and I guess that's what was meant by matching you up with an appropriate teacher, an appropriate subject.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. And I picked this, first of all, because I used to do it when I was in the city, but also because when I was in college, I wanted to be an elementary school teacher. And there were too many teachers in California at the time when I was going through school. So from the time I was in the first grade, I wanted to be a school teacher. And of course, at the age of 20, you have to say, well, I guess I have to pick something else. So I knew I'd eventually come back to this later on. And it's been everything that I would have hoped for.
Lucky for us that she came and wanted to do this.
Yeah, it sounds like that you are making a difference in the classroom. That's wonderful that you can volunteer. How did you pick this particular group to volunteer with?
Well, actually, I have a friend who was doing it while I was still working, and she said, when you get out, you really ought to do this. And I said, yeah, that's something I do want to do. So she made the referral, and that's how I got hooked up with Suzanne's office and talked to them and went through all the orientations. And they have a great training coordinator also, and she has like these really interesting workshops on, you know, how to motivate or how to deal with behavioral issues or how do you teach math, or, you know, so she's got several different ones that she does, and they're very good.
I'd like to ask you another question. How do people hear about the school volunteer program?
Well, a variety of different ways. We are a nonprofit, so we don't have a lot of advertising budget, but we are running some ads in the Independent Journal right now, which is just really darling shots of students working with the volunteers. So we do have the ad campaign. A lot of it is word of mouth, like Barbara mentioned that she found out about our program through a friend. And we also put up flyers in the libraries and the gyms, different locations to get the word out. And we send out donor letters, and that sometimes people, or we have a newsletter too, and we're actually doing an online newsletter soon, so we'll have that option too, trying to reach people in a lot of different ways.
Is there a central volunteer agency in Marin that helps people find volunteer positions?
That's a great question. There's a CVNL, Center for Volunteer. I always forget what it stands for, but it is an organization that directs people to different organizations and places that they can volunteer.
Because some people might not know about you or have seen an ad, so they would just be directed by those folks.
That's a great question too, because we are online, and actually when we do our new volunteer orientation, we just had one this week, and I think a couple people had seen our ad in the newspaper, but 2 out of the 6 people that came for the new volunteer orientation Googled us and found us online. So we do have a website if anybody's interested at www.mcsv.org. So it stands for Marin County School Volunteers.org. So, and we have that online presence too. So that actually, when I started with the program, it's just been in the last about 5 years that we've had a website, and that really has gotten the word out because so many people go on to the internet to find opportunities.
Well, that's interesting. So do you have a lot more volunteers than now?
We have probably, we've grown over the years. We started out in our infancy, we had about 5, we were in about 5 schools, and we had about 40 volunteers. And now we're in about 45 different schools in the county, public schools, and we have over 450 adult volunteers. And we're not in every school in Marin. We do focus on the schools that need the most help, and quite frankly, some public schools in the county don't really ask for volunteers because they've got so many parent volunteers that come into the schools. So we focus our volunteer force in San Rafael and Sausalito and Novato, and that's probably the bulk of where our volunteers go.
And you're always in the public schools.
We place our volunteers in the public schools, yes.
So if people want to volunteer, they should go to your website?
Absolutely. They can fill it, they're right there on that website. They can fill an application out, and we'll get it, and we'll call them. You know, we're very service oriented. If we get an online application, or if somebody just wants to call us or leave a message if we're not there, and we'll call them right back. That's part of, we spend a good portion of our time. We had the senior fair that just happened, I guess it was last week, and we had a group of people sign up, and the next day we called everybody, and we had about 3 of those people come in for our volunteer orientation, or signed up for one in the near future. So we're really all about finding volunteers, and we don't want anybody to wait to be placed. Once they go through the steps that they need to go to, as far as coming to an orientation and getting fingerprinted and TB tested and getting a couple references and an interview, then we place people we'll place people as soon as possible. And there's a huge need out in the county. We are getting requests all the time from the schools. So we never have enough volunteers. We always need more volunteers.
That's interesting that the schools call you.
Yes, they do. I mean, they know about our program, and we get emails, or we get phone calls, or we have volunteer coordinators at the different campuses that are always sending us emails saying, "Oh, do you have somebody to help out in 3rd grade or 4th grade or in high school level?" So.
I have perhaps a wrong question, but do you have volunteers at the community college level?
You know, we have some we have partnerships with other, like the Dominican we used to be, but we do get some community college people that are placed through our program. Because they're in a class where they need some field volunteer work. And Barbara had mentioned that wanting to get back into the classroom. We have a fairly good-sized group of people that may be wanting to change careers, and they're thinking about going into teaching. And so they come to our program, and then they can actually go into the program and volunteer and see if this is something they want to do. And it's always exciting. We've got a couple people right now that weren't sure. They're changing their careers, and they are now getting into teaching credential programs as a result of doing this wonderful volunteer work.
What a wonderful opportunity to check it out ahead of time.
Absolutely.
That's very nice. Yeah.
I wish every teacher had the ability to have done that, because and then you really get to decide if this is something you want to do. Obviously, volunteering is different than being a classroom teacher, but you get to watch it up close and personal.
But it sounds like a lot of what Barbara's talking about doing is what a teacher's aide might do with the individual children.
Right.
Yeah. And I find that the teacher really enjoys having the volunteer, because it takes some of the burden off of him or her. Schools are getting to the point where they're putting more kids in the classes. I mean, she's got 25 in there now. Then you have the additional problems of their recent immigrants, and they need more help. They need more help with, how do they assimilate? How do they learn the language? How do they learn how to read? And just, so she's got, my teacher, I've seen her stand there and say something all in English and then turn right around and repeat it all in Spanish. And I'm sure if she knew any other languages, she'd probably go for that too. But it's just a lot of work, and so it's nice when she's got, she's got me, and I think another day she's got someone else, and then they've got parents that come in. So the need is really there, and there's plenty of different types of things to do. So it's I'm sure that anybody who wanted to do it would be able to find something that satisfies them.
It's really a gift to the community, to the individuals too.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, it's a great point too. Teachers, there's been so many cuts in the I've been involved in education for about 15 years now, and the cuts that have happened over the last even 3 or 4 years have been pretty devastating to teachers, and there's a lot of schools that don't have the help in the classroom, and we do it, like I mentioned, an end of year survey, and we survey the teachers and the administrators, and almost 100% the feedback we get from the teachers is just, thank you, just send more volunteers, or from the principals, we love your volunteers, they're so well trained, and they know what they're doing, and they're so great with the kids, just send us more volunteers. So we get wonderful feedback from our volunteers, and they make a huge difference. And what we hear over and over again, and I think Barbara can talk to this too, that they get so much more than they give. I mean, it's you go in thinking you're going to help children, and you find out that you're in there, and it just, I know when I get a chance to volunteer when I'm not working, I just absolutely love it. I come home so happy and a smile on my face, and you just feel so happy, because you feel if you've reached one, and you never know when you're going to reach that one child that may never have had somebody spend an hour with them, or a half hour, or 20 minutes with them.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So it's about the students, and it's about the volunteers too. It's a win-win situation.
Right. I feel like a matchmaker. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like being a matchmaker, because, and that's why we keep at it too. If somebody is not happy in a placement, I had a gentleman recently that I tried for about 1.5 years to find a placement for him, and he had a very unique skill set, and he wanted to work with high schoolers, and about 2 weeks ago we found the perfect placement for him, and he's so happy. So we just keep at it.
I've been wondering, how are you funded?
Well, we are funded by individual donations, and also we're always going out for grants. So we get grants, and foundations give us money, and Marin, I can't say enough about Marin County Office of Education, because they've given us so much support, letting us be part of the operation there, where they're giving us a home. But we're always looking for funding, and we send out donor letters a couple times a year, and we probably half of our funding is from individual donors, from small to large donations, and also the grants and foundations support us as well.
If people want to donate, can they do it on the website?
They can do that on the website. Yes, they can. They can at least print out the form and send it in. All the information is there. We've talked about doing the online donation, but it's pretty much a two-step operation. But you can print out the form and then send it in. We're happy to take donations, and we always need them.
And what was the website again?
It's www.mcsv.org.
Thank you. It's been wonderful talking to you both. That about winds up our program. Thank you, Suzanne, Barbara.
Thank you.
For
It's
joining
fun.
us.
Thanks.
And I also want to thank our Soroptimist crew, as well as Rick Tucker and Leon Johnson from Novato Public Access Television and Pat, for their help with the production of Sounding Board. Good night.